In tribute to Rabbi Sachs, my words this week are based on an essay written in Covenant and Conversation for the Parashat Hayesara, in 5776, 2015, entitled Faith in the Future. And in this essay, Rabbi Sachs looks at Abraham Avinu, and he highlights the tragedies of Abraham Avinu's life, and recognizing that this parasha opens with perhaps the most difficult blow to Abraham's life, the loss of his lifelong partner in love, Sarah Imenu, Sarah, our matriarch. She dies at 127 years old, and only 5 words are given to express in the Torah Abraham's response. Vayabo Abraham lispod lesara v'libkota. Abraham comes to eulogize Sarah and to cry for her. But immediately afterwards, the words are Vayakom Abraham, and Abraham got up and went to continue his orders of business. He buys a burial plot for Sarah, which is the first acquisition of land in the land of Canaan, which will ultimately become the land of Israel. He makes sure that his son Yitzhak marries and is able to carry on with his family and his future. Abraham himself marries a woman named Keturah, has 6 children at the end of his life. And Rabbi Sachs points out that although Abraham, it would be understandable if Abraham got stuck at any one of the points in his life and where he experienced tragedy or breakdown or profound challenge, from this parasha we see that Abraham carries on. He does not miss a step. He constantly looks forward in his life. Rabbi Sachs says that this is something that is a legacy for us. It's something that we should take for us in our lives as the progeny of Abraham Avinu, members of the nation of Israel, and recognize that living in the past or getting stuck in the past is not a way of life, even though the past may include tragedies that threaten a handicap or a difficulty in being able to move forward. Rabbi Sachs points out that some of his greatest moral mentors of his life were survivors of the Holocaust, and that the way that they carried on was that they did not live in the horrific past that they came from. They married again, built businesses, built families, engaged in future days. And they didn't even speak about the past, many of them, until 40 or 50 years later, when their futures had already been established, when they had carried on and rebuilt their lives. And Rabbi Sachs says that this is the way that we are meant to live, that we are always to be looking forward, never backwards. And he points out that one of the people that look backwards, famously in Torah, loses her life and becomes a pillar of salt, the wife of Lot. And whereas as difficult as it was for her to look forward and carry on, knowing that everything that she had known was being destroyed behind her, she was instructed not to look back, to look forward. And she looks back and essentially is lost along with what it was that was going away in her life. Rabbi Sachs, of course, points out that this is not easy. It is difficult for us. But ultimately, it is the way that we are meant to live our lives. It is the way that we live our best lives. And so, on that idea, I wanted to add only one question, and that is, what is a tactic that we can use? What is a perspective that we can use in order to be able to help us address this and deal with this? And I think that there is one line in Rabbi Sachs's essay, the penultimate paragraph actually, and where he says, and alludes to the idea. And what Rabbi Sachs writes is, we are not here by accident. We are here because God wanted us to be. And what that tells me is that the nature of our existence is not something that is superfluous or that is happenstance, that is simply running through circumstantial situations in this world. That the nature of our being is emphatic, that the nature of our being is meant to be. And that means that my life, my identity as an individual is the most important, the most solid aspect of my life and experience on this earth. And that means that it is the most important thing for me to invest in, to build, and to develop myself, my identity, and my connection with the source of my being and the soul of my being, God. And that means that attachments to things, to people, to circumstances, we must engage with carefully. And that essentially, although we are meant to live fully, to invest with all we have in the circumstances and situations that we experience, we must not define ourselves based on them. We must not define the nature of our existence based on our circumstances, our relationships, or our assets. Those things come and go. But as long as we are alive and existing on this earth, in this life, there is a destiny that we have to look forward to. And that destiny ultimately is, who am I? What will I become? And when we look at the most tragic and severe situations, we have known people, as Rabbi Sachs points out, that have lost everything and rebuilt everything. And that they recognize that as long as they had breath in their nostrils, that as long as they were walking and living, there was a life that needed to be lived, whether the particular relationships, particular circumstances, or particular